Welcome to the Private Practice Survival Guide podcast with your host, Brandon Seigel. I'm a published author, speaker, entrepreneur, and private practice strategist dedicated to transforming the way that healthcare functions. This podcast is all about empowering you to create the change you want to see. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Private Practice Survival Guide podcast. In this episode, I'm bringing back Amy Lafko, the leader of people. And today we're going to talk about difficult conversations. We're going to talk about how to address performance issues without destroying relationships. And so, Amy, welcome back. Thank you for joining us.
I'm so excited to be here, Brandon. So thank you so much for including me in this.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited. So what framework do you have for having those hard conversations that actually improve performance? Because I know you've got them, and I know people hate to bring up conflict. They don't enjoy it. They don't want to have it. So what's your methodology for this approach?
You know, I think one of the great things that you and I talk about so often is mindset. And so I have to share, and I did this as a TED style talk. It turns out I did this 10 years ago at CSM. And it was called Every Problem is a Chance to Build a Relationship. And that was the first element of successful conflict. It's how do I view it? I used to think of conflict as, oh my gosh, transactional, get in and get out. There's something we disagree about. I need a different answer. Let's just go in, have at it, and just hope we survive. And when I pivoted to thinking that every problem is a chance to build a relationship, that shifted my mindset. I let go of being right or stuck on my approach. I let go of being afraid of the other person or what they're going to be thinking. And it really became about how can I use this conflict to build our connection and our relationship. And so first off, it's always about a mindset shift. The second thing that's really important is our willingness to listen and actually hear, not just the active listening. I'm going to nod my head while they tell me things that I completely disagree with, but I'm going to nod my head anyway. I mean, truly seek to understand someone else's perspective. And so the most valuable skill set when it comes to conflict resolution is your ability to ask open-ended questions, powerful questions. Walk me through your process to help me understand this. Can you tell me more about what your ideas were here? Or help me understand where we might have gotten off track. And then actually listening deeply to the answers and really saying, okay, what can I be open to? So that genuine curiosity is vital. I just had an issue with one of my team members, and I was like, man, I was sure I did everything right in setting her up for success with this. And I'm like, hey, listen, this was a failure. Let's figure out what happened. Like we failed the client here. Walk me through it. It turns out she wasn't the issue. It was a systems issue. But if I had gone in with the mindset of, oh, she totally screwed up, I was already set up for failure.
Well, it's so interesting because sometimes what I find is someone will rev me up and then I go into it in such a fire of protection.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I heard your blah, blah, blah. And people even clients I'll have, and they're like, you got revved up by someone, didn't you? And I'm like, I did. I'm sorry. I got revved up. Because what happens is we get into fight or flight because of that. And so one of the things that I always keep in the back of my head, and it's something that just got ingrained in me in the last 20 years, is this E plus R equals O. So event plus response equals outcome. Yeah. And so my approach, just so that everyone knows, is two things. First is whenever I start conflict, I actually want to start them with acknowledging what is going right. I always want to start with, hey, Amy, I really want to acknowledge, because part of this is how do I take them from fight or flight to prefrontal cortex? So that idea of, Amy, before we get into the matter at hand, I hope you hear this. I really see some great value. I really appreciate the time you're putting in. I know your intention is the best for our patients, our practice, et cetera, whatever that is, because that's going to set the tone. And then the next usually is, well, what's the outcome? The outcome is ultimately, am I trying to make Amy wrong? No, that's not my outcome. But when I go into fight or flight, the outcome usually is I'm trying to protect my team, myself, my mindset. It's from a self-protection, like there is someone attacking me. And that's where we run into issues. So ask yourself what outcome you want. And typically I want to create an event that will deliver the response from the person so that I get that outcome. So usually the outcome is we want to find a solution to a problem. Hey, do we agree that there was this problem? And so even Amy, in your example, you recognize that the solution was not something that could have been controlled by this employee. And so I think as we are driving that, performance improvement comes, in my opinion, from alignment in terms of shared expectations and responsibility. Do you agree that this is a fair and reasonable expectation? I had said in an earlier episode with you about the employee, the first thing that happened was the manager went to the employee and said, is it my training that failed? This isn't working. Something's not clicking. We've now gone through this. I've trained you. Are you not? And the employee ultimately said, no, it's 100% me. Took responsibility. So then the outcome becomes, well, what's the next step?
Yeah.
And so as we look at that, how do you know when coaching has failed and termination is the right decision? Like, do you have any driving factors when you feel it's time to pursue termination versus coaching?
Well, before I answer that, I want to back up a little bit because I think you made a couple really good points. And I think your manager did something really great there. One of the things when you were talking about getting really revved up around something, one of the best ways to break that is to say, what are my assumptions? Ask yourself, what assumptions am I making? Because we all have these automatic negative thoughts, these ants running around our brain, and they're running wild. And so if you can't control your own ants, your own automatic negative thoughts, and you can't break them by saying, what's the assumption? Then phone a friend. I'll never forget, one of my clients used to call and he'd be like, hey, listen, there's an ant running around in my head and I need you to help me squash it. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. What's the positive assumption instead of the negative assumption that I could make? So I think that's the first piece. And then the second is, what's the common goal? And you talked about this with the idea of the outcome and really getting clear with folks on what the outcome is what is the common goal? And so often when I'm doing workshops on conflict resolution and we're doing scenarios, that's what they miss. I'll ask people, what was the common goal? And the one person's answer is, oh, to show them what they did wrong. And the other person's common goal is something completely different. It's to show that I'm right. So when we let go of what's my goal and what's the common goal, then we can actually do the other pieces you mentioned, which is your manager saying, is it me? And another piece of that is asking, going forward, what do we need to do differently? Because when I think about, is it the time to let someone go? If they either A, can't see what's not working, or B, can't identify a plan, even if the plan is simply, I don't know yet and I need your help, then we can really say, okay, is this something that you want? Is our common goal actually for you to stay at this job? Yeah. Or are you not happy here? Or do you feel like you're not going to be successful? No. I love it here. Okay, then what do you need to do differently? And how do you need me to support you going forward? Performance management, we spend way too much time in history. And you know what? Turns out there's nothing we can do about that. So let's shift performance management to future-based performance management. What are you going to do differently next time? How are you going to make sure that we don't have this happen again? What do you need from me in the future?
Yeah, no, I love that. And I agree. And I think as I look at it, I always say, start with the transition option before you think termination. So termination's obviously the path of last resort. Sometimes at the same time, and you may disagree with this, I have this idea of like, hire slow, fire fast.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone passes 30 days, my rule is if they get past 30 days and their potential is there, then we do all we can within reason to develop and build them, because at 30 days they should show you enough hope for the future that it's someone that you want to develop for a lifetime, in my opinion.
Well, and I think the other thing, you're right. I agree with you. Hire slow, fire fast. I'm terrible at it. I like to hire slow, but I like to fire slow too. And that's just a weakness of mine. It's because I just, the way that's not a strength. It's not a good thing. I wish I was smarter about doing that more efficiently. But the other thing is giving them milestones along the way. When we're getting to the point, I'll have people say, well, I'm going to put this person on a PIP, my least favorite thing, performance improvement plan. And I'm like, well, what's the next step after a PIP? And they're like, they're fired. And I'm like, okay, well, why are we just doing that now? We want them to understand the implications all along the way. Even if it's just a quote unquote conversation, this is what needs to change going forward. How can I help you succeed at that? All right, and listen, we're going to touch base on this in whatever time frame. And if we've got the improvement, great. If it's still not there, then we're going to need to figure out what the next step is. And then when you get to that next step, say, listen, I'd like to give you the time that it's going to take to really turn this around. How much time do you think that's going to be? And then I just want us to be on the same page that at some point, and this is my marker, at some point, we're going to actually need to look at whether or not this arrangement actually makes sense. You've got to put that out there. People who are surprised that they're being terminated, even though the manager says, well, I've written them up 50 times. I'm like, well, you never mentioned that this was part of the deal, and we want to be transparent about whatever our process is. And Brandon, you do great work around handbooks, and, that's got to be defined in your handbook.
Yep. The other thing I'll say is, if it's when termination is with cause, that framing of termination with cause, that's a very specific criteria. In my opinion, when I terminate with cause, that's criminal activity. When I terminate based on performance, that's not the same as terminate with cause, just so that everyone knows. And typically, if I'm terminating based on performance, I am also offering them the opportunity to resign. So I am saying we've reached a point where we can either terminate based on performance, or we are prepared to accept your resignation. Something that I think is plaguing our world is this idea of, basically they can leave at any point because it's an at will. At will does not mean that you're safe from termination claims and issues and whatnot. And so I think a lot of people think because it's at will, you can do anything you want. Like tomorrow, and I come back to the people first mentality. I don't think at will is a people first mindset, because I don't think it's in the best interest for someone just to leave and gone. I think there's both sides. How do I transition out of this role for another opportunity? How do I transition? And so I think when we're looking at this idea of performance issues, the idea is that it is a shared perspective that the performance expected is not a fit based on the criteria of the organization. And it's in both the employee and the team's perspective to part ways in the most productive way.
And I think the other caveat with that, because you're right, with at will or, what kind of termination it is, you need to be really clear on what your state or federal laws are. I work with clients all over the country. I've worked with clients in other countries, and the laws around employment are different in different places. So when you're setting up your handbook, making sure that it's legally compliant, when it comes to what the performance management rules are for your area, and making sure that you're compliant with all laws, even before we get into what is people first. Yep. When it comes to performance management. Performance management and people first is really about transparent communication, honest communication about what the expectations are, what's working, what's not working. the plan for moving things in a positive direction and the impact if that doesn't happen.
Yeah, no, I agree. So last question, what do you find is the most common mistakes leaders are making when they're giving this feedback? When they're giving performance, where do you see leaders?
Well, Brandon, it's actually something you brought up earlier. I think too many leaders love to start with all the good. Let me just tell you everything that you're doing great, and I'm secretly going to slip in what's not working. When I worked at a health system, they called it the heart sandwich.
Yeah.
And, when you have these conversations, I like the concept. The concept is that I'm not saying you as a team member are doing everything wrong. But what can happen is if we pile on too much of the good, we sneak in the bad because we really don't want to talk about it, and then we pile on the good, the person's actually not going to get the message clearly about where they are struggling. So when we're having those conversations, of course, I'm hopeful that all the time you're telling them what they're doing well, so that there's enough trust that if you say, listen, there's something off on performance right now, I'd like for us to talk about that. You can start with, now recognize this is only one element out of all the great stuff that you're doing. So I just want to be clear about that. But I want to focus in on this piece so we can help you get back on track. Be really clear about that aspect. And then the other part of it that makes it people first is saying, here's where we are. Here's where we need to get to. What do you need from me in order to get where you want to, where we need you to move to? It's that clarity, and I love when I do key expectations and success factors with teams. And it turns out people in the same job don't think they have the same expectations, and I see you smiling. My gosh, I practically start giggling over this. And yet every single time I do this with clients, there's someone going, no, that's not us. Is that us? That's not us. And so it's clarity around the expectations if we actually want to hold people to performance. But so my caveat with start with something good is think about what's really driving that for you. Is it a way to avoid the hard part of the conversation? Is it that I want to make them feel good, even though I feel like I'm going to make them bad and feel bad? And so being able to have enough trust in the bank that you can say, listen, here's where your performance is great. Here's where it's lacking. Let's work on that piece.
Totally. And I actually agree with everything you're saying. The concept that I'm trying to achieve is I am trying to get them from defending themselves from the start. And I want them to get into a role with me where they have a seat at the table.
Yeah.
Today we are here. You're a valued member of this team. I need your input because I know things can operate in a better standard just based on the way you perform. Here's what I'm seeing, and I want your feedback to help me come up with solutions so that we can get us to where we need to grow.
And Brandon, what you've done beautifully then is set the table for that common goal. So it's not about saying, listen, here's the 5 things you're doing great and the 1 thing you're doing wrong. It's about saying, listen, my goal is for us to figure this out because you're a valuable member of the team and I want us to succeed. That's setting the table for that common goal that serves both of you.
Yep. Totally agree. Well, I so thank you for being part of this episode. Amy, share with everyone how they can get in touch with you. It will be in the show notes, but I'd like them to hear it from you as well.
Hi, everybody. So certainly I'm on LinkedIn. Amy Lafko, pretty easy to find on LinkedIn. You can email me, amy@cairncs.com. If you're not sure how to spell it, just go ahead and look in the show notes. And I've got a website too, Amy Lafko, or you can go right to my Cairn Consulting Solutions website for all the details.
Wonderful. And don't forget to check out her book. And if you can't find it, reach out to me and I will refer you. But on Amazon, find her book, read it, have fun with it, pass it out to your leaders. And don't forget to like us, subscribe, because together we can thrive, not just survive. Thank you for tuning in to the Private Practice Survival Guide podcast. I'm incredibly grateful to each and every one of you. Exciting news. We're now available everywhere from Spotify to Apple Podcasts to YouTube or anywhere you like to listen to your podcasts. So watch, listen, and reach out. If you love this episode, please drop a 5-star review. It truly means the world to me. Are you looking for more ways to elevate your practice? If so, now is your chance. Reach out, go to my website, or email me at brandon@wellnessworksmp.com. And remember, it's not just about surviving, it's about thriving.